All right, so thank you, Jeff, for speaking today, and thank you, everyone, for attending the session. So Jeff Waldman is a senior HR leader at technology evangelist, deeply engaged and connected within the SMB and HR technology spaces. Jeff's influence has helped growing and scaling SMB companies strategically scale their HR operations through a combination of strategy and technology. Thank you for speaking today, Jeff, and good luck with your presentation.
Great, thank you, Alex, and it's great to be here. So, I want to welcome everybody to the session. So I guess people will just start to sort of file in as they come in. So we'll get started. So, I'll be talking about employee engagement in a virtual world. And so obviously employee engagement is a very hot topic right now, as is, mostly everything in HR. So the head of HR, has been thrust into the spotlight during the last 7, 8 months. And for obvious reasons. So, for questions, please put them into the chat. I'll try to get to them as fast as I can. I am going to be producing a bunch of blog posts and some content after the conference is over that I'll share this presentation with you, and obviously answer any questions that I can. So, so let's get started. So just a little bit about me. So I've been around for about 20 years. I primarily work with SMBs, and I help them scale their HR operations. So some of the clients, that I've worked with this year on the right-hand side here, and so I've been privileged, obviously, through COVID to be doing some really cool things. And so yeah, so I think it's really important though. So before we even talk about employee engagement technology, anything like that, I think it's really important that we have a clear understanding of our changing workplace. So this is not new. This has been going on for some time. I actually did a presentation about 10 years ago to a group of virus and business students, actually, and it was about 10 years ago. And I basically argued that the changes, that are happening in our global workplace are happening right now, and at some point down the road, something was going to change, and technology was going to take over. I mean, I didn't, really realize that it would take a pandemic that would basically cause this rapid shift. But this has been happening for some time. But what's really changed, what's happened is we've been facing a pandemic, and I really hope this short little 9-second video works. But here it goes. So, and it's going to come up after this slide. COVID. So we all know this. COVID happened in March. It has basically completely forced us to transform overnight, and we have been tasked, organizationally to deal with it, and it has basically impacted every single facet of our life, including work and organizations. So if you just watch it for 1 second, so I hope it works. So, so if any of you are, old as me, you'll know, the Roadrunner and the Coyote were my favorite characters growing up. And, COVID, was that actual explosion. And I call it an explosion because that is, what it felt like. And so what was the impact? I mean, look, what happened? I mean, lots of things happened, but basically, and I'm talking about work here. So we went from, working in an office. I think it was about more than 85% of the professional working world, went to an office. So at some point, and then now offices are basically ghost towns. So and I'm just talking about organizations that have professional services. So any tech companies. Services-based companies. Obviously, if you're a Ford Motor Company, you can't, do away with people. So, so they still have to go into work. So, but this is what's happening, and so people have been spending all their time working from home. I just want to shift. So now that we've talked about that, what is employee engagement? Now, if you go to Google and you put this in, you'll probably get millions and millions of pages and different point of view, views on this. But there are a lot of things that go into this, and one really interesting quote is, if you think about it, if people are only in it for the money, so financially they want something back, right? But when people are actually emotionally invested, they want to contribute, and that is a really key difference. In that, I've seen this in every single organization, that I've worked with, and just to make it even, or bring it to life, it's that emotion, the emotional connection. So employees, identify themselves, with their work. They're passionate, they're enthusiastic. There is a high degree of trust. So more and more, research is saying that trust is a key factor in the workplace today. There's a sense of gratification in people, right? So these are all things that I've seen in my work. These are probably, the key thing. Now, more stats here, which, I like going to Gallup. So Gallup is a great source, but this is, sort of, business connected, stats. So we've had an engagement problem for years. Only 15% of our workforce globally is actually engaged. Companies are obviously more profitable if they have high engagement, they're more productive, and so on. So these are some key drivers. So these are the things that I've seen that are the key drivers of engagement. And I think one of the biggest ones, that I want to point out is psychological safety. So that's the bottom right-hand corner here. It's open and transparent communication. So, recognizing people for good work, balancing work and play, connected coworkers, and obviously opportunities for people to grow and learn and to build those skill sets. Guess what? We already knew all of this. This isn't new. These things have been talked about, researched, studied, looked at in organizations, for the last 30 years. This is not new, okay? But I think it's important for me, just to mention that. So I just want to do a quick sort of recap as to what we've talked about so far. And I know that I'm rushing through this because there's, the meat of this is like coming soon. But we know that, the workplace is changing. COVID blew everything up. Employee engagement is good for business, but it's still low. And employees feel good and connected when they're engaged. And we now know what the engagement drivers are. So the big question today, and I want you to really think about this, is how do we actually improve employee engagement in the current crazy world that we live in? Feel free just to sort of write any comments in the chat, ask a question, think about it. But that is the key question right now. So what's the main thing? Does everybody want to take a guess? What is the single biggest ingredient that will drive engagement today in our virtual world? Anyone? Evan is absolutely correct. So communication. So communication, and I've been saying this for years. Yes, Nick, second place. So communication is that catalyst, and it always has been, but it's even more important now because we are in a virtual world. So this is, if you take anything away from anything today, and there's better stuff coming, but this slide here, I think, will tell, the entire story right here. Everything that you do in an organization has to connect these two things. So communication and technology, all right? And all of the stuff, whatever you do from a communication and tech standpoint, need to be consistent, transparent, and frequent. And I'm going to explain that right now. Here's tip number one. One-stop shop, virtual wiki. You call it a wiki, you can call it a web page, you can call it anything that you want. This is an example of an organization called Blendle. They created a Notion, which is the actual logo here, at a wiki page, for all employees. And this is their go-to, the operations manual, right? It gives their employees, and it doesn't matter where they live, an access point that they can go to, one-stop shop on everything that they need to know about the organization, how it runs, how it operates, HR policies, everything, roadmaps, guidelines, where to find things, documents, everything is in this thing, and it's a virtual web page. This is just a screenshot. And then if you click on, say for example, you click on their values, somebody wants to know what their values are, you would click on it and this is what comes up. It's actually longer than that, but they actually visually show their values and then what they mean. And the point here is that it's all in one place, okay? So you don't have to go to Google Drive to find something. You don't have to go to an intranet. You don't have to, call somebody or email someone. It's all in one place, and this is a living document. This is becoming more and more common. So if there's anything that you can take away from this, it is you need to have something. It can be Notion. It can be any platform out there. I'm just giving you one example. So tip number 2, diversify your communication. And so what I mean by that is, and these are just examples. I put actual platforms, underneath them, but you can pick anything. The idea is that you need to diversify how you communicate with employees. And so if you just use email only, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. If you just use video meetings, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. You need to be diversified. You need to use all of them. You need to have a mix of chat, collaboration, recognition, email, check-in, goal setting, and face-to-face meetings as in video communication. Okay, it's really important. You need to use all of them, and especially nowadays because people will start to get tired of the same method if you overuse it. Number 3, socialize work. Okay, this isn't about happy hour or what have you. The idea is that you need to balance work and play. And so this is probably one of the things that has been talked about a lot in my circles is how do you come up with creative ideas to actually engage people and keep them sort of social. This is just one example. You can do a virtual coffee, and the whole point of this is that you are taking people, and it's optional. People can opt in if they love coffee. They can kind of come together in a common interest point, and they can have coffee together. But the important factor here is you need to schedule it. You need to be scheduled. You need to be ongoing. So if you just do it once and then stop doing it, then it's not doing its job. You can make it fun by sharing recipes. The mug matters, right? So these people here all have a fantastic slogan or a logo on the mug, and they're sharing it. Choose a background that's based on coffee. Hashtag it, right? Hashtag it and then socially share it on your Twitter feed, Instagram, and what have you. It's a branding opportunity. This is just one example. Make it about common interests. You can even have a chat. It can just be a chat. It doesn't have to be video. You can do a lot of different things if it's virtual coffee. It can be a cooking class. It can be anything that brings people together in a non-work fashion, and it should be something that is embedded into your workflow in your week. And it's worked quite well. And I know many organizations, who are doing this. They're trying it. If it's not working, they are trying something else. Virtual employee supports. I cannot, sort of overemphasize this. There's a lot of research and data out there right now that is showing that employees today, because of the fact that they're being forced to work from home, there are a lot of other challenges, that are popping up. So whether it be personal health, it could be wellness, it could be counseling with psychotherapy, it could be even supporting families and parents with children, right? So there's a lot of things that, organizations, have to do. If your EAP is not enough, then find something else or supplement it, okay? it's really, really important. So some organizations have actually experimented with a platform like Maple, which is a video-based virtual on-call doctor's platform. And so if you have employees that are, scared about leaving their home and actually going to a doctor's office, then you can actually get this for them. Wellness, Headspace, which is a great mindfulness and meditating platform. And so there are companies, my client, who are actually using it or actually offering it for their employees. And the third one, counseling, psychotherapy. I can't emphasize this enough. These are just 3 examples of platforms of companies that offer virtual counseling platform. Okay, so if you're not getting enough out of your EAP, then my suggestion here to look at other alternatives that can sort of add value. Family and children. So these are just 2 examples. Hatch Coding, which is a Toronto-based company that offers coding classes for children and program, and also Curb, which is based in Vancouver, which offers like educational program for kids as well. So you don't always needed a tool. Use your creativity. A lot of companies are creating programs for the employees that they're actually managing. So, for example, Twitter is doing a video-based, children's support platform, which is pretty interesting because it actually involves employees and their kids. So there are a lot of different things, but I cannot, overemphasize enough the importance of we need to stay on top of how people are doing at home. So number 5, this is very important. Extreme leadership visibility. And so what I mean by that is you can no longer stand up from your desk and go walk down the hallway and see how your colleagues are doing or your subordinates are doing. You leaders need to be deliberate about checking in with the employees, and they need to do it on a regular basis. I'm not saying every single day. I'm saying on a more frequent basis. Leaders need to be much more transparent about their business strategies and what's going on in the boardroom, so to speak. Leaders need to be doing more to actually be present and visible, to all employees. I can't really sort of overemphasize this enough as well, but there's a direct positive correlation between leadership involvement and employee engagement, because it shows employees that they care, they're actually thinking about them, and they take them seriously. Last tip. So I'm a huge HR technology guy, and so I showed that one slide earlier about the integration of communications and technology. And so I have a couple of clients right now that I'm actually looking at tearing apart their HR tech stack and coming up with a new stack, basically, and it's all based on these 2 things, integration and an experience. There is nothing more frustrating than employees having to use different platforms for different things, and they don't really talk to each other. It means more the windows being popped up, more password to remember, and it becomes a lot more messy. It's also more expensive. The other thing too is, when a platform doesn't work or the experience is subpar, that is a reflection on the actual organization. So it's really important that you take a look at your HR tools and your tech stack. And so there's a thought leader in the space. I'm sure many of you have actually heard his name, Jason Averbuch. So Jason Averbuch is a friend of mine, and he's with a company called LeapGen. And he spoke at the recent HR technology conference about 3 weeks ago. And he said, something that really struck with me. And it's about, digital communications is the new lifeblood for businesses. And he furthered that by talking about COVID, saying that 95% of companies are seeking new ways of actually engaging customers and staff. So you need to be all over this, and HR leaders need to fully integrate HR technology into everything that they're doing, and especially nowadays with the virtual world. So So here's a slide that, this is how I think about HR tech. And, there's two buckets. One is, I call it social collaboration. You can call it communication, collaboration. It doesn't really matter. But these are some examples of platforms like ClickUp and Notion, are kind of like wikis and all-encompassing platforms that allow you to manage tasks and workflows. It also integrates with Google Drive and Zoom, Slack, and all of these other platforms. The other is around something that houses all of your documentation that can be shared and actually collaborated on. So it could be Google Drive, it could be OneDrive, it could be any of those platforms. Video platform is an absolute must. My favorite is Google Meet, and the only reason why is because it actually offers live caption, and I'm actually hard of hearing. So if you want to be inclusive, I always encourage to find a platform that offers more of those features. Zoom apparently is coming out with something, but the point here is that you need to have a video platform that seamlessly integrates into your calendar, into a bunch of different things. Slack is my favorite, collaboration tool. And so this is on the collaboration side, and then it flows over into HR technology. And I put these in here. It didn't have to be these, but you need to have an HRIS, you need to have a recruiting system, and then a payroll system. And then everything else is sort of nice to have. So Gusto is a Vancouver company. They do recognition, 7 Gs. It's more like an agile performance management, and the same thing with the latter. So the point here is that everything has to, integrate together. And the really key factors are easy searchability, integration video, diversification, collaborative, and mobile. So when you're looking at your HR technology stack, it's really important that the solutions that you go with meet these criteria, because you're trying to maximize employee experience and then engagement. And as I said earlier, if you have things that don't line up or don't work properly or don't talk to each other, employees will get frustrated, and then even more so today in a virtual world. So my last parting thought, so this is my quote, and I don't do quotes, okay? So, bear with me. Employee engagement is about diversified, consistent, transparent, and frequent communication on steroids, okay? By using integrated technology, to enable a great employee experience, right? So the communication is absolutely key. You need to over communicate. You need to ask your people questions about what's going on with them, and the technology that ecosystem need to to allow that communication to flow freely. So that's it for me. That's all I have. So I had 30 minutes, but I wanted to enable some questions and some time just to have a conversation. So I'm going to share this presentation with you. And if you have any questions, Jeff, for me, let's talk about that now. Thank you. Do you have any questions? How do I bring people into the presentation? So thank you, Evan, Angela, Amy. Do you have any questions? So Amy's question here is, are companies doing a good job in general of introducing new technology, in my opinion? And I would say the answer is no. I think, and especially when it comes to HR tech, because when you introduce something new, that is a major change, right? And so naturally people hate change, and we're, so averse to a change management. And so oftentimes, we might bring in something new, but we forget about the change management part of it, and we just ask people to start using it. But they don't have the proper context as to the business case. There's no training, with no ongoing change. So I think companies are still struggling. While we do a pretty good job on the business side, so operationally, marketing, finance, sales, so on, I think we're still further behind on HR. That's why I always start with the business strategy. So that's why I talked about the business landscape first. It really is, what are you trying to achieve organizationally from a people standpoint, and that'll hopefully help you figure out the right tools. Technology changing, it's changing rapidly, so you need to stay on top of what's going on. Should read The Catalyst, How to Change Anyone's Mind. Yeah, I haven't read that book, but The Catalyst, I've heard that it's a good book, and unfortunately I have a stack of books over there I'm still trying to get through. But any other questions from anyone? We've got about 7 minutes left. You're seeing a shift in must-have technology with the work from home and COVID. Yeah, so that's a great question, Ron. And so one of the things they must have is social collaboration. So a lot of companies, before may have had something, but they didn't really make it mandatory because people were in the office, so they could just sort of physically talk to each other. So social collaboration, so what I mean by that is a tool like Slack, it could be Yammer, it could be Microsoft Teams if you're a Microsoft client. It could be any of those platforms that allow you to create groups and to chat and talk to each other. And it's also connected to content management. So if you want to share a document with somebody, Slack has integrations with Google Drive and OneDrive. So I think that is the absolute mandatory one, that I've seen. So Nick, can you talk about online mental health resources? Yeah, so this is not an area of expertise for me. I'm not a mental health expert, but there are a lot of platforms that are popping up now that offer virtual support. So as I showed that one slide, I'll show it. It's about offering support, for employees. So the biggest trend has been psychotherapy, so counseling. And so there's an excellent company out of Vancouver called Starling Minds, and so they specialize in counseling, grief counseling, trauma counseling, and all of those things. And so the idea there is that oftentimes EAP program, if you're with Monroe Chappelle, for example, they're still a little bit say old school in their operation now. They may be a little bit slow to react to some of the changing needs of organizations. So having a virtual platform like a Starling Minds or BetterUp or any of those will enable you to do things much faster and to give people that comfort that they can do things virtually. So that is the biggest thing right now. The other shift that I've seen a little bit of is the video medicine, I guess you can call it. So platforms like Dialogue and Maple. Now, I haven't seen a major adoption of those because a lot of doctors are still doing phone calls and so on. So, having a video call, I don't think is a major sticking point for people. Any thoughts on combating digital fatigue in employees, giving them resources for getting offline? Yeah, so honestly, thanks, Evan. It's very simple. Leaders need to be telling employees to turn, everything off. And I mean that. It's the same thing with the vacation, taking a holiday. It is really important that, that leaders show by example by actually logging off, putting your phone away, being, completely disconnected. Taking those breaks, getting them scheduled, go for a walk, do something that is completely separate. And I understand that, digital fatigue is real and it's going to impact people differently. And so that's why managers really have to get to know their employees, right? And then each person needs to be dealt with separately. So I hope I answered that question. So in addition to virtual coffee breaks, any other creative virtual social ideas, others? Yeah, so Leanne, great question. So virtual coffee, it can be happy hour if people like that. I am not advocating for that. Other ones, really interesting ones are walks. So there are platforms where you can actually do virtual walk together, and and then you can raise money for charities. You can do cooking classes, baking, even if it's just a get together and sort of a peer-to-peer training session. You'd be amazed at how that can tap into growth opportunities, but give people an opportunity to public speak and then use presentation platform. And so a lot of companies have seen a lot of interesting things about that. Starting threads in Slack that are about dogs, cats, pets, children, showing pictures of children, pumpkin carving contests. I did one with a client of mine where we had a global pumpkin carving contest, and we did it all through Slack. And then we had our voting system, a poll or a poly, to vote on our favorite one. So there are a lot of really interesting things that you can do, and it's all driven by people's common interests. So let people do what they want. But I think the biggest thing with employee engagement has to be communication, and especially nowadays, and technology. If anybody has any questions about technology, you can always give me a shout and just contact me. I've been around the HR tech ecosystem for several years, and so I can probably give you with some ideas. But one thing that you probably should do is audit your current tech stack. So once again, I'll make these slides available to you, and I want to thank you all for your question. I'm actually going to take some of these questions, and I may publish some blog posts, and I may even contact you for some sound bites. So yeah. So any last questions before we take off? No. Excellent. Oh, and just now that I have everybody here, so Evan Hallward, who's on this session here, he's with a company called Aboard. So they're Toronto-based, onboarding technologies. So if you haven't checked it out, and if it's something that is a pain point, for your organization, check them out. Evan, you want to put the website? What is it? Getaboard.com or something? Getaboard. Getaboard.co. Yes. So check it out. So one thing that but I always say to every peer and client is that you need to educate yourself on the latest and greatest HR tech tools out there. So it's really important to demo, to sort of stay abreast, and try to be partial to a Canadian platform if you can. There you go. So Evan Hallwood, doors open. So check him out. All right. So I think I'm done. I don't know. I'm supposed to log off or turn off my screen or what. So so I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for your questions and your comments, and I hope it was helpful.